What's up, everybody? I am Jesse, or GameOverJesse, as all of you may know me, and joining us on the Hylian Gamescast's Zelda Mailbag, where we answer your Zelda questions, is Daniel and Kayla,
Hello.
as always. But we also have Joe, who everybody may know as Daruk in Breath of the Wild. We just had a very nice interview with him where he answered all of our questions. But now he's going to be answering some of your questions. So my favorite question here is Sexy McIntyre is his nickname in the Discord. We call him Sexy McIntyre because of his voice. He does some voice acting as well, and he just has one of those really deep, lovely
Smooth,
voices,
buttery
Yes.
voices.
So
Can I just say something real quick? I mean, since you're talking about deep, sexy voices,
yeah,
I was in Salt Lake City this past weekend, and Chris Judge, the voice of Kratos from God of War, was there, and we both rode in a shuttle together, and he just hearing his voice. Like, first of all, I'm in a shuttle with Kratos. Like, we're
Yep.
riding, in like a little SUV going to the convention. So that there's that right there. And then just hearing his voice, it's like, oh my goodness, come on. Like, it's not even fair.
yeah. So I guess
Just his everyday speech, it's like, can I get an iced tea or something? Just something trivial like, oh, does anybody have a stick of gum? Or,
Oh my gosh. Wait,
it's
did you
like-
fangirl at all because he's Teal'c? I would have just flipped right out. From Stargate SG-1? Like, oh my goodness.
yeah.
Okay, anyways.
No,
It's
so
funny you say that because I'm listening to you and I keep thinking, man, this guy's got such a good voice. Like, even not just your normal voice, you could be on radio and all. And it's, I guess, one of those things, you're always looking up or something.
yeah.
Yeah.
So Kayla kind of touched on something that I was saying, and you kind of did as well, mentioning like being around, the voice of Kratos. So I guess this should have been for the interview, but before we get to Sexy McIntyre's question, what was it like for you going from someone who was a huge fan of the Zelda series and looking forward to Breath of the Wild, and then all of a sudden you're on the other side of that to where fans of the series are now fangirling over you and getting excited to talk to you, when before you were the one who may have been excited to meet whoever it was. Like if you would have met Patricia,
yeah.
the voice of Zelda, like now you're on that side.
Yeah.
So what was that like for you?
It's like I said, it's surreal, man. It doesn't compute. It's still the game has been out now for about a year and a half, and it just still gets me every time. I've played this game. I played, and my friends that have, played, with me, that, we just grew up, on the SNES and the Game Boys and the N64s and all that. And it's like, dude, you're in Zelda, it's surreal. And what's even more crazier, I think, is like my parents who, they're old fashioned and stuff like that. And not that they discouraged me from playing video games, but it's, they definitely wanted me to make time for homework and sports and, all that stuff that they want kids to do nowadays. But, they wanted me to be like a lawyer or a policeman, a cop or something like that. Like, a voice actor, that's crazy, and not just a voice actor, but to go on and be able to say that you've done stuff like this. It's, if it were all to end tomorrow, if it just, if it all comes to a screeching halt, I'd be okay with it. I'd be, I would feel content. And that's a really special feeling. I'd hate for it to end, but lending my voice to a franchise like this, it's like, come on, it's not going to get any better than that.
Yeah. I mean, it has to be surreal. Even, like, Daniel, Kayla, and I, we haven't done anything nearly as great as voicing a Zelda game, but even just with the YouTube channel that we have in the podcast, like going to E3 for the first time and being like, oh, we're in LA, we're all together, we're like, we have some fans of our own, like meeting all of the people who had been listening to it. Like there were some people that went out to LA to hang out with us while we were there, and it was crazy seeing them, because the way that I looked at it is like, I'm just a fan of Zelda like everyone else. It's just we are talking about it, but that's enough to make people become fans of our channel. And then with you, like it's completely on another level to where like now you are in the Zelda games, you're not just playing them. So
one of the major questions that we get, people will ask me either in person or on Twitter at a convention or something like that, is how do you get into voice acting and so on and so forth. And so you have to have that foundation, obviously, that performance and that acting background. But I think right behind it, you have to love it. You have to love what you do. And it shows in your work. It shows when you go that extra mile and you dig deeper when you maybe doubt yourself or you're not 100% certain. And so that's really important, is to have that love and that passion. You shouldn't be doing it for the money. You shouldn't be doing it for whatever type of fame that you think you might end up achieving. But you do it because you love doing it, and from there, if you work hard, the rewards will be there, and that stuff will come. And that's kind of my little ditty. And I'm also a big believer in it doesn't matter if you want to be a voice actor, if you want to be a plumber or a lumberjack or whatever. Surround yourself with people that are like-minded like you, that will encourage and challenge you and make you the best version of yourself, that make you want to pursue your dreams and be a happy and healthy version of yourself. I used to have a girlfriend, an ex-girlfriend of mine, back when I was in college. She would often kind of like, she would ask, well, why do you do those voices? What's with the voices? That's so weird. And, she's very judgmental and all that. And I really kind of let it get me down. I was like, oh gosh. And so it kind of pulled me out of, kind of experimenting and testing my range, because that's a lot of voice acting, is just kind of goofing off. You're playing around, you're testing, you're just creating characters. You're doing what would probably get you in trouble back in grade school. But I think that's the type of thing that makes for a great voice actor. And so you just want to make sure that you have people that will nurture that passion for whatever it is that you have.
Really great advice. Ilya.
Yeah, I really like that. That
really great.
Yeah.
Real talk, man. I just got real talk from Daruk.
Yeah. Ilya, who is another one of our podcast co-hosts, whenever someone can't make it on, or if we need a fourth person, we'll invite her. She actually just graduated recently to do theater and voice acting and everything. So she was on when we interviewed Patricia, and a lot of her questions were directly about advice and experience and stuff like that for voice acting. And she's in the chat right now, and she got excited and was like, yes, I just got some free advice, thank you. So a huge thank you from Ilya, which I also, there's links in the Skype chat that I just sent. One is for the YouTube live stream, so if you want to watch live to see everyone else's response, I don't know if you have it open already or not, Joe, but it's there. And then the other one is it's a Google Doc for the questions that we're about to ask you. So if you see any of those that you would specifically like to answer, then you can just scroll to the bottom of that Google Doc. But getting to our first question from
finally,
from Sexy McIntyre. He asks, how many rocks do you think Daruk eats in a day?
12.
What?
They're big ones.
12 big rocks.
Wait, how big are we talking? Like
A
12
dozen
boulders or
rocks.
12
Yeah.
like pebbles? You know, I mean,
No, we're talking full-on boulders.
full-on boulders.
Yeah, not all at once, but I would say you kind of spread it out.
Throughout the day.
A
Yeah.
well-balanced breakfast, lunch, and dinner. 12.
So do you think he like unhinges? He just tries to swallow it all, or does he smash them up and eat them? Or
I don't know. I mean, you wouldn't eat like a chicken wing all at once. Like you just kind of you start and nibble and you work around the bones, and the next thing you know, you've had a chicken wing. Or same thing with an apple. Like you don't swallow it whole, of course.
no, I mean he chews, but
Yeah.
We're getting the rocks too.
Yeah. All right. So, were you able to open up the Google Doc?
I
Joe?
think I saw some of them, but let's just. I can't. I'm sorry. I'm having a hard time right now.
All right.
Yeah,
No,
that's
it's
okay. Don't worry about it.
We'll just read them out to you. So Kayla, do you want to take the second question here to ask?
All right. So I'm gonna grab a question again from Ilya. Well, you already gave her free advice, but she is curious about because she's done some limited voice acting radio shows, and she was wondering what your warm-up routine is for your voice.
So, I don't know if every theater program is like this. At other colleges, I can only speak to what I've gone through and my experience. Oddly enough, I've compared notes with Amelia Gotham, who is the voice of Mifa, and we've both kind of had a very similar theater training background, which is pretty nice because it's like, oh, you did this, I did that, and so it's great where you're able to actually like compare notes. But you do some stretches, some like vocal stretches to create some additional breath and support in your lower diaphragm, so that you're able to be clear and enunciate and make sure that your instrument is running properly. It's like yoga, Pilates, and I think the specific like instructor or person that pioneered it was like, it's called Fitzmaurice work or Fitzmaurice. And conveniently enough, Amelia happened to study like the same technique as well. But it's weird. It's just a bunch of like kind of yoga, kind of Pilates type stretches, but you spend like 5, 10, 15 minutes in the morning and you do it, and it helps just make sure that your voice is able to sustain whatever kind of punishment that with the screaming and the shouting and all that stuff, as much as possible for whatever a session or 2 sessions or however long things might run. So that's vocally how you kind of prepare, I guess, or at least I would anyway.
Very cool.
All right. Yeah, Ilya.
I'll
Hope
grab
that hope that was able
Start
to,
doing
to
yoga and
answer your question.
Pilates.
Get on it, Ilya.
Which is really weird because if you look at me, if you were to meet me in real life, you would say that guy does not do yoga. There's no way in hell that guy is a Pilates guy. And I'm not really like a Pilates or yoga guy, like even to this day, but I do know the stretches and I do know the techniques, so that for the sake of breath work, I'm able to do it. But I'm not like a yoga guy,
Yeah, fair enough. So this next question comes from username Beast Boy.
Oh, Axel the
And-
Beast.
Not Axel the Beast, different
No?
different beast. They ask, what was it like playing both Daruk and Yunobo? Was it weird playing such wildly different characters yet related characters, one referencing the other all the time? And do you have a favorite between the two, either as in general or just playing them? And I think I want to just add on to that question real quick. There is in the game one particular scene where the two see each other. Was that scene especially weird? Especially to not only to voice but to play when you're playing through the game later.
Weird? No, I mean maybe a little bit weird for like a half a second, but again, you record everybody. We would record all of Daruk's lines all at once, and then we would have like maybe another session where it was like all of Yunobo's lines all at once. And so, it's not like I was like, talking to myself and that's like, I wasn't have like a back and forth conversation right then and there with my characters. But, it was definitely a moment where you have these two characters see each other, and that was it. Just it warms your heart. You get the feels. It's definitely a moment that you kind of have to cherish. I mean, voicing these two characters, it was fun. It was awesome. And if they let me voice everybody, I would voice everybody. I gave it a go.
I'd love to hear you voice Mifa.
I tried yesterday in front of Elizabeth.
Oh, really?
Her job is safe. I'm not. Oh, I'm sorry. That was Amelia. I'm sorry. I tried voicing Urbosa yesterday, and Elizabeth's job is safe. For those guys that are on Twitter, I posted a little video about Patricia. She was doing some of Daruk's lines this weekend, and trying to get her to do some of it and seeing how she would be as a Goron, and that was a lot of fun. We were kind of each delivering each other's lines.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm gonna go take a look for that. Did everyone just die at the same time?
Yes, we all
I guess
died.
it's back to my turn to ask the question.
Yes.
I was used to earlier during the interview when it went Daniel to Kayla. All right, so my next question comes from, let's see here, Tebby Bear, who says, so my question for Daruk is okay, so there's a typo. It says was. His question is, was voice acting your first considered line of work? Is his question. Sorry. There's a bit of a typo there, so it was...
No.
Was voice acting your first?
No. I mean, I don't think anybody wakes up in the morning and says, I want to, as a 5-year-old and says, I want to be a voice actor. Maybe they do. I don't know. I can tell you that it was sort of just like a gradual, just sort of like weird, organic, just thing that just sort of happened. And I can tell you that as a child, I was exposed to a lot of cartoons growing up. And so that sort of became my foundation for creating characters and having that imagination and being fearless and being able to go there, and it sort of fed my love for performance. And so that's what kind of made me want to go into theater. And theater, as far as I'm concerned, is sort of like the backbone, the foundation for any good actor. I feel like if you can act on stage, you can do stuff on camera, TV, movies, and even voice acting. I think you still have to kind of learn the craft and the technique and the etiquette and all that stuff. But I feel like if you have that foundation, it lends itself very well to other mediums that kind of go in there. I think that's where you kind of start. What was the question again? I'm sorry, kind of trailing off a little.
He asked, was it your... I think he wants to know if voice acting wasn't your first career
what
path.
was your dream job?
Yeah. Yeah, basically.
I think, and I kind of mentioned it earlier, is that, I always wanted to perform. I always wanted to be an actor. That was always a passion of mine. That was very counter to what my parents wanted for me. They wanted me to be a lawyer or, like I said, a policeman or something stable, very 9-to-5 kind of a job. And that just wasn't me. That just wasn't where my heart was. And so, like I said, went to college, studied theater, did that. And after I graduated, I was like, what am I doing? Like, where do I want to go? Because unfortunately, unless you're on Broadway or on a national tour, making a living as a theater stage actor is really, really hard, I found out. So I'd been doing the character voices at Disney for a couple years at that point. And so that was sort of my gateway, so to speak, into voice acting, playing these goofy characters that were larger than life. And it just gave me a lot of practice with improv and, pitching my voice up or down and all that. And so it's like, maybe I could do this for a living. Maybe if I got serious about it, I could give it a go. And I realize, like I look at my mug and my homely appearance and my goofy exterior, and I'm like, yeah, you probably wouldn't want to see this on a big screen or on your television or anything like that. So it's probably best if I'm like in a booth behind the microphone doing that stuff. Like I didn't feel like film or television was right for me. And just there's something that's so free and liberating about being a voice actor because, again, I hate to hark on it, but if I were to go and try and make it as an on-camera actor, I can only play what you see of me. I can only play that 30-year-old goofy, nerdy, kind of, fool, that just kind of, blithering fool. That's what you would see of me. As a voice actor, it's limitless. You can do anything. And to me, that appeals to my imagination. That appeals to my range as an actor, or what I feel anyway. You get to do something different every day. And I love it. It's so awesome. So that's sort of just the natural, organic progression of just how things turned into what it is. And, as a voice actor, I do a little bit of everything. I do commercials, I do audiobooks, you do corporate narration and all that stuff. And by and large, a majority of stuff, if you talk to most working voice actors, a lot of stuff isn't fun. A lot of stuff is boring. It's very, like I said, books on tape, or you're updating, the company's policy on sexual harassment for, 2019. And it's very, this is the corporate structure, and you're just kind of reading things out loud. But then every once in a while, you get to do something really cool, like a Zelda. And it just makes it all worthwhile. Like I said, you feel like you've hit the jackpot. And it's the coolest feeling in the world, man.
I love that. Yeah, I was gonna say I love that you're so passionate about it, because some people, I guess, like if you were doing a voiceover for a video game series that you just didn't like, but it was paying well, so you decided to do it anyways. There are people that do that, so I'm glad that with you were actually passionate about not just the franchise as a whole, but the characters that you got to play. So it's like a win-win for not just the fans to get a great voice-over, but for you as well to play on a series. So, Daniel, I believe it's your turn, and then Kayla, I guess, can wrap us up with the final question.
Sure.
If there is one question mark, but okay.
All right. Well, this one comes from Jess X. And they ask, how many different variations of voices did you play around with to find the right voice for Daruk? Or did you only, well, this one I think you kind of answered in part already, talking about it, but I guess we can elaborate a bit more about the different variations, voices that you played around with before, like, finding the one, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't start out that way. It didn't start out from the first audition. It didn't start out what you saw in the video game. I went in, and again, the image that I had in my mind was this, barbarian guy, and Jamie, the director, specifically gave me the direction that he was this Gimli, Lord of the Rings, kind of big, larger than life. And even to this day, I still remember him. My first approach was a very grounded, realistic sort of a cinematic approach, because that's what Jamie does. If you look at all the games that he's directed, they're very real world. They're very cinematic. And so it was, very serious and very, gruff and very, gritty and all that. And he's like, no. Let's make him bigger. And so, again, it was just a collaboration. And it's a constant, like I said, refinement of just getting it to be where it was at, and we would just bounce ideas off of one another, and you go with the text, and like I said, they scrubbed the script, so there was no mention whatsoever of Hyrule or Zelda or Link or anything like that. So again, not a clue. But I remember one of the audition lines was like, "Oh, could you believe this view?" And I think it's that moment where Daruk is up on his divine beast, and he's kind of admiring the landscape of everything, and just working that, and just no, really, you need to make this grand proclamation of just how beautiful everything is, and you're taking everything in. So again, if you have a great director, they will fan that flame of your performance and really bring it out. Voice acting and most things that are performance based, it's sort of like a sports team where you have your athletes, you have your coach, so to speak, or you could even make the argument that it's more like kind of like a symphony where you have the writers, you have like your cello players, you have your violinists, you have everybody, and we all just kind of come together to be in sync and harmonize with what the conductor, or in this case a director, is trying to go for. So it's a complete collaboration, and it's a complete team effort.
Right on. Well, Kayla,
Yeah.
take us away.
Yeah.
All right.
Answers your
So,
question.
our last question comes from Buddy Kong. He is the only one that has been putting questions in our live chat.
Right.
He asks, any embarrassing kind of like voice acting roles you've had to do, or
Oh man, embarrassing. Oh, well, if it was really embarrassing, should I really talk about it?
Yes.
well, you don't even have to tell us exactly what you were voicing. Like, you could kind of describe maybe the type of character they were, maybe
Okay,
something that seemed a little bit out of your zone that you were trying to do.
Name names, so I'll say this. But a long time ago, I went to do voiceover for a specific, shall we say, marine life theme park that is located in Southern California, and also Texas, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And they had taken a lot of heat publicly, a lot of bad PR for the way that they had treated, or shall I say, mistreated some of their marine life mammals. Now, when I got the job, they never said who it was for. They never said what it was or anything like that. They said it was like an educational kind of a show. And I was like, okay, that's fine. It'll be kind of a kids thing. I was totally cool with that. And I get in, and the director says, yeah, we're just trying to do away with all the bad publicity that Blackfish has gotten us. And the next thing, I'm reading the script, and everything is about like how kind we are to the whales, and how nice we are, and how well we treat the animals. And it's like, oh gosh,
No.
It weighed on my conscience and my moral being. And so I have a couple of friends of mine that are fellow voice actors that know that I've done that, and they tease me about it. They give me grief, and thank goodness that now, since then, that park has done away with all of their shows, and that show doesn't exist, and they're
it's less embarrassing now.
But for a while there, it was like I myself got bait and switched. Because I think had they had outwardly said, hey, we're this, company, we're this park, I don't think anybody would have signed up.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
All right. Actually, if you have 2 more seconds, I have a final question that I thought of, sparked by this question about the most embarrassing. So I would like to know, what is the funnest or the most exciting, the best fan interaction that you've had that's come from your roles in Breath of the Wild? Whether it was at a convention, or maybe an email or a message someone sent you saying how they really love the character, or someone coming up to you in person, like giving you fan art or something like that. What was the most memorable or exciting fan interaction that you've had at a convention thanks to Breath of the Wild?
That's a really, really good question. There's a couple that come to mind. There's one that kind of sticks out of my head that, right now. There was this woman that reached out to all of us in the cast probably about 6 or 7 months ago. She's from London, England. And she was a mom. And I guess I think it was her son, who was probably like maybe 15, 16 years old. I guess he came down with some sort of like a disease, and I don't remember. I don't remember the specifics of what it was, but it was really bad stuff. And he was going through a really rough time, just physically, mentally, emotionally, and all that. And she had said it's his birthday coming up pretty soon. If there's any way that you guys can do any sort of like special shout out or anything, just whatever you can to make his birthday extra special, it would mean a lot. And so we all kind of collectively sent like a little care package to his mother to surprise him on his birthday. Some of us threw in like signed autographs and headshots, and I had come across some like little stickers and some Daruk stickers, and there were like some buttons and things like that I'd come across on Etsy that I was like, you know what, I'm throwing this in, man, whatever I can do. And we got a lovely reception, and the mother wrote us back, and she was like, oh my gosh, was in tears and loved it, and just stuff like that. Like, that's meaningful. Like, it's great to be able to, like, be in a game and to be able to do something really cool, and that's something that people like and enjoy and love. But to be able to turn around someone's day that is going through, a physical ailment like that is huge, man. That's big right there. So that to me that was so rewarding. It makes you feel really good inside.
Actually, a perfect answer.
Yeah.
The question
Seriously.
popped in my head because I was trying to think of, instead of leaving off on something embarrassing, leave off on something positive, and that would be the best thing. So once again, thank you for joining on the podcast. Very nice of you to come on. Very unexpected as well. When I originally reached out to everyone, because we had started having a lot of the same guests on, and then Kayla mentioned getting new guests, and I was like, well, who could we possibly get in touch with that would even be interested? And then we ended up reaching out to Patricia and you and some of the other people, and everyone who's replied has ended up saying, like, if they couldn't within the next couple of weeks, then eventually whenever their schedule frees up. So it's almost like a dream come true to not just have you and Patricia, but to have all of the champions, and hopefully we can get I can't think of his name right now, but the voice actor for King Rome and some of the other people to come on as well.
Bill's a great guy. He's one of my great friends out here in LA. I've known him for a couple of years, and just kind of a quick little tidbit. I've known him for a couple of years now that he's been out in LA, and like I said, I see him all the time. We're really good buds. When you go on for a project such as this, you have to sign the NDA. You can't tell a soul. You have to hide it from everybody. And so for the longest time, I didn't know he was in this game. He didn't know I was in this game. And up until about maybe 3 days before the game came out, they started, like, Jamie sent out this thread to all of us, an email and like a little blurb to everybody in the cast, like, hey guys, love your work. We're getting ready. This is it. It's happening. It's coming out. And I happened to see his name on the email chain, and it's like, wait a second. you doing? So, again, that speaks to the NDA, the seriousness, and that speaks to his professionalism as far as, keeping it a secret and holding true to it. So he has another story about the NDA and keeping it a secret, and I'll let him tell you that when you guys have him on. But Bill is one of my favorite people, so you'll love him.
All right. Yeah. Once again, thank you for coming on, and for everyone who might be interested in finding out more stuff from you, where could they follow you on? I know you have Twitter, but Instagram, Facebook
Twitter,
page. Do you have?
My Facebook is mainly for family, but I would say Twitter always a good way to go. At Joe Hernandez VO. Same thing with my Instagram, although I'm not really on Instagram all that much. So Twitter's probably the best way to get a hold of me.
All right. Well, thank you once again. And do you have anything final to say to the people that are watching or that will be watching?
Thank you so much for coming out and listening and supporting and keeping it going and just sharing all the love, man. Like I said, just did a convention right now this past weekend, and everybody was great. So just keep it going. Thank you so much, guys, for supporting it and making this franchise what it is.
All right. With that,
Awesome. Thank you, Joe.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for joining us, man. It's I'm super psyched about all of this.
My pleasure.
All right. Well, with that, I guess bye, Joe. We're going to continue on the podcast. Not really good with buys or ending stuff like this, but
Yeah, how do we politely kick you out?
Okay, I'll kick myself out, okay? Bye.
all right, bye,
All right,
Joe.
have a good day, Joe. Oh, man.
Amazing.
Yeah, how do we
Amazing.
politely kick you out?
Good, smooth, Kayla.
All
Very
right.
smooth.
So everybody else that's watching, we're going to finish up the podcast with some news from the past week or so. As soon as there it is, I had to wait for it to go full screen again. All right. So if you're watching and you only tuned in for Joe, I guess you can tune out now. But it would be really great if everyone would stay and watch the rest of the podcast, because we're gonna be.
I swear, we're interesting too.
Yeah. So our I guess I gotta change this. Viewing. He was really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was good. It's very, like I said, I felt like I just got life coached by Daruk. I feel good.
Yeah.
Can't believe that he voiced for JoJo's and for Berserk. Like, that just blew my mind.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
I don't watch English versions of things. I only watch them in Japanese. So
Yeah.
wow.
Well, anyone who's watched this podcast long enough
Oh,
knows
would
how
you
big
guys
a fan I am of Daruks.
want to switch this over to Discord? Maybe.
Yeah.
Do you have
Sure.
Discord set that way? Like it's not all the way it is right now. Would that be okay?
Yeah,
Is that an
okay.
issue for you, Kayla?
No.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
No
Let's
issue.
do it. Let's rumble.
All right, because the audio
Bye.
quality will be better as well.
Oh yeah, that's true. Okay.
And we-
Yes.
Y'all just interrupting me.
Am
Just
I?
cut me right off. Just cut me right off.
Daniel.
Mid sentence, just call ends. Oh,
I'm on a rude streak. Look at me go.
just the rudest.
How do I pull?